Welcome back, public speakers. Today's lecture is all about Monroe's motivated sequence. So that's the one thing I want to be explaining today. So let's start off by defining what Monroe's is. And I want you to think of Monroe's motivated sequence as a organizational format you'll be using for persuasive messages. And it's great because you can use any persuasive message to advocate for and seek immediate action, whether you're trying to change beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors. And there are 5 steps to Monroe's motivated sequence, which is attention step, problem step, solution, visual step, and action step. So I want to start off with the attention step, which is exactly what it sounds like. You need to hook your audience from the start and make them want to listen to your presentation. Use any techniques you've been using so far in this class, whether it's humor, visualization, or anecdotes. All of them will be appropriate for this specific speech. After you hook us, you want to relate your topic to your audience and give us a reason to listen. Make me see myself in your presentation. And then do not preview your presentation. You want to conceal that intent to persuade. So let's go off the example, and let's say somebody chooses the topic of persuading people to not smoke cigarettes. They can create an attention step that sounds something like 34.3 million people in the US smoke cigarettes. Cigarettes are everywhere. They're at home, they're at school, and they're at work. But how severe are the problems associated with smoking cigarettes? Which will lead us to our second step, which is the problem step. And the biggest, most crucial part of Monroe's relies on the problem step. Here you are responsible to demonstrate the serious problems existing, and you're responsible to also unpack and explain the severity of these problems with strong evidence and verbal citations. I expect you to unpack about 2 to 3 problems in this step, and you need to clearly identify those problems to your audience. So let's go back to the example of persuading people to not smoke cigarettes. One huge problem that someone can bring up with this topic is the likelihood of being diagnosed with cancer. From here, you'll go on into depth and explain all the research about the correlation between smoking cigarettes and cancer. Another huge problem with smoking cigarettes is air pollution. Again, you'll go more into depth. And the third problem that you will explain is the addiction to nicotine, right? Nobody wants that. So at the end of this step, we should really be eager to hear your solution, which is of course your third step. And here you provide the solution, and it's one solution to the problems you just brought up in the previous step. You want to wait to provide the solution now and explain how the solution is and how it works, right? Use your informative speaking skills in this step and act as if we have never heard about this solution before. Show the audience how the solution that you brought up addresses all the problems you just addressed in your problem step. And then last but not least, I want you to use a two-sided message with refutation in this step. Use your opponent's arguments against them. So going back to the topic, one solution that will address the problems you just brought up is nicotine patches, right? Nicotine patches overcome the problem of cancer because, and then you can go into depth with research, nicotine patches also help keeping the environment clean. Again, you'll go into depth with research. And then last but not least, nicotine patches help overcome the addiction of nicotine. An example of a two-sided message that you can use: many people think that nicotine patches are costly, they're expensive, but researchers found that smokers spend $1 grand each year on cigarettes. Wouldn't you rather spend that money on something that's helpful and environmental to the world? The fourth step is the visual step, where you'll create a mental picture in our head. And here you're responsible to use vivid imagery language to really paint a picture in your audience's head about how the world's going to be with or without this solution. So you could go with the negative kind of approach, and you can say something like, picture a world where people continue to smoke cigarettes, right? Where your close friends and family are dealing with secondhand smoke. Or you can go with the more positive kind of perception and say something like, imagine people being able to live longer lives because they don't smoke cigarettes, a world with cleaner air. And then last but not least, the fifth step, the action step, which is where you finally make a call for action. You want to say exactly what you want the audience to do and how to do it. Keep the actions brief and simple to accomplish, and do not ask for major change. And when all those action steps are done, end with a memorable closing statement. So last but not least, going back to the topic of persuading people to not smoke cigarettes. One action step that you can recommend is to visit their local pharmacy to purchase these nicotine patches. The second action that they can do is to educate their loved ones. And then the third action is that they can smoke one less cigarette each day. As you can see, these 3 action steps, easy, brief, and simple to accomplish. And then you can end your speech with a memorable closing statement that sounds something like, always remember you're hurting way more people than yourself each time you light a cigarette. So just to recap, we talked about Monroe's and its 5 steps: attention, problem, solution, visual, and action step. Email me if you need any further clarification. I'm only an email away.